Morning guys, I want to discuss in this video the difference between shooting wildlife pictures with a DSLR, so a digital single lens reflex camera, and a mirrorless camera body, and the advantages of a mirrorless. Now, anyone that's been watching my channel for the last few months, you'll know that I've switched to a mirrorless camera body for wildlife photography. And that's what I want to concentrate on in this video. I do shoot landscapes and architecture, but generally on my channel I'm featuring wildlife. So when it comes to the differences, or what I think are the benefits of shooting with a mirrorless camera body, it's going to be with regard to wildlife photography, because that's what I'm featuring on this channel. So before we do that, I just want to say that you can shoot absolutely fantastic wildlife images with a digital SLR. I've been doing that for years. Up to recently I was shooting with a Nikon D500, now I'm shooting with a Nikon Z6 Mark II. So you know, there are fantastic images being made using DSLRs. It's just, I think there are some benefits when it comes to wildlife photography by using a mirrorless camera body. But before we talk about those, let's talk about some of the things that are the same. So image quality, as long as you're comparing like with like, so an entry-level DSLR with an entry-level mirrorless, or a mid-range DSLR with a mid-range mirrorless, or a high-end DSLR with a high-end mirrorless, the image quality is going to be the same. And we are so lucky at this point in history. The image quality that we get from our cameras is superb. So they're going to be the same. So that's not an advantage one way or the other. When it comes to high ISO performance, again, it's going to be very similar as long as you're comparing like with like. So full frame with full frame, crop censored with crop censored. And one of the things that is really important is high ISO performance, because often we're shooting with fast shutter speeds in low light. We need a fast shutter speed to freeze the motion of that animal, but we're shooting in low light conditions, so the ISO performance is really important. And one of the things I've got with my new camera is I'm shooting with a full frame sensor on the Z6 II, whereas the D500 with a crop sensor, so a smaller sensor. Although the high ISO performance on my D500 was also very, very good. So ISO, I don't think there's an advantage by shooting mirrorless or DSLR. They're going to be roughly the same as long as you're, you know, comparing like with like again. When it comes to autofocus, I think probably it's a similar performance at the moment. A DSLR, the autofocus performance is brilliant. Most mirrorless camera bodies, the autofocus is also really, really, really good. It does work slightly differently, and what you do get with a mirrorless body, especially the Canons and the Sonys, you get eye detect. Now Nikon have got eye detect for animals, but they don't have eye detect for birds, and you've got that with a Canon, and that basically means that camera is going to pick out the eye of the animal and lock onto it. So that's a definitely advantage, and I think the autofocus performance on mirrorless cameras will pull ahead in the years to come, because I think all the research and development money is going into mirrorless camera bodies rather than digital SLRs. So that will be an advantage. I think it will be a growing advantage over the years. But that's, as I say, a DSLR autofocus is superb, so I don't think that's a minus for the digital SLRs. Where I think the benefits are is the electronic viewfinder, for two reasons. Firstly, I'm shooting a lot of video now, and tracking a moving animal using an electronic viewfinder is so much easier. With my DSLR, I had to switch to live view, so the picture's on the back of the camera, and you're like this, trying to track that moving animal. Whereas with an EVF, you're looking through the viewfinder, and it makes it so easier to track that moving subject in video. So that's one advantage. The second advantage, and that's not an advantage if you don't shoot video. If you're just doing stills, then that's not a big advantage, is it? But the second advantage is, I think, even more important, and that's for exposure, because with an EVF, what you see in the viewfinder is what you get. And that's really, really important, because I shoot in manual exposure, and I've always shot in manual exposure, and because I've been doing it for years and years, I'm quite confident with doing that. But occasionally you will make mistakes, and with an EVF, an electronic viewfinder, you make less mistakes. Because imagine you're photographing an animal in a dark, shady area, and then it flies up into a bright area. You have to adjust your exposure really quickly. Now, with a DSLR, you're using an optical viewfinder. The light's coming in the lens, hits the mirror and goes up into the viewfinder. So you're seeing the light travel through the lens. But if you make any adjustments to the exposure, you won't see that. But with an EVF, if you adjust the shutter, the aperture or the ISO, you actually see that in the viewfinder. So if I go from a dark area to a light area and I make an exposure adjustment either to the aperture, the shutter or the ISO, I'm going to see that straight away. And not only that, I've got the histogram in the bottom of the corner of the frame. So as I make the adjustments, I can see that I've got it completely right. So I think that's an unbelievable bonus. The other thing is as well, I might want to underexpose the picture on purpose for a low key image, or I might want to go for a slightly higher key image and overexpose it, although that's less likely. And again, as I make those adjustments, I can see them in the viewfinder, so it's an unbelievable bonus. And then last but not least, I think mirrorless bodies are generally lighter than DSLRs, and that's always a good thing because as wildlife photographers, we're carrying these big long lenses, so any opportunity to cut down the weight is great. And then I suppose last but not least is the fact that the shutter is much quieter. And you know, sometimes when you're photographing very nervous animals, you know, the shutter firing can actually scare that animal and it's off and gone. So the silent shutter or the quieter shutter is also actually a big bonus. So you know, on balance, can you shoot great images with DSLR for wildlife photography? Yeah, of course you can. Can you shoot good video with a DSLR? Yeah, you can, but it's just easier with a mirrorless body. And I think having control of the exposure, especially with a mirrorless camera body, is a lot easier. Now, I'm going to do a longer review of the Z6 Mark II, and hopefully I'll have that out in a few weeks. I did a first impressions when I first got it, and that's on my you know, on my channel, and I'll link to that video up here. And apart from that, I'm starting to get busy running courses again now. My main sort of business is running photography courses, so I'm going to try and keep doing a video a week for my channel, but I might have to go to one every other week, so we'll see how it goes. But you know, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have enjoyed it, if you can give it the thumbs up, a like, that would be absolutely brilliant. If you can share it, that would be also great. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, if you can subscribe, that'll be fantastic. The more people that I've got on the channel, the better, and it, you know, it helps me, it gives me the enthusiasm to keep making content for the channel. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you on my next video.